The other lesson for the 1.21 quiz is 1.20, and this is all about scientific method. You want to know the general steps and also how to identify the different variables. So we'll define independent and dependent variable here, as well as what controls and constants are. So, scientific method has the following steps. You have to ask a question or identify a problem, make a hypothesis to either answer or fix that problem, test that hypothesis with an experiment, organize and analyze the data that you collect from your experiment, draw some conclusions from any patterns that you see in that data, and then last but not least, communicate those results. Because if you discover something amazing, you need to let people know. So, I have down here some parts of an experiment, all right? And one of these matches everything on there. So go ahead, pause the video, see if you can match these up yourself, and then I will actually go through and do it, and you can see if you were right. So pause the video and start it back up once you have matched these up yourself. So let's see if you are right. So ask a question or identify a problem. Say the question mark in this, how do I get my teacher to assign less homework, kind of makes that one clear. All right, so making a hypothesis. Hypothesis is kind of like a prediction. All right, good sign of a prediction is something where you're not talking out of certainty. So using the phrase if. All right, so if I bring my teacher chocolate, she will assign less homework. So that's our hypothesis. We think bringing chocolate might have an effect on the amount of homework. So test the hypothesis by performing an experiment. So which of these sounds like an experiment where we can actually take some measurements or record some observations? Hopefully you chose the bring chocolate each day for a week and record homework. Then don't bring chocolate for each day for a week and record homework. All right, so our observations that we're recording is how much homework we get based on the presence of chocolate or not. So organize and analyze your data. And that is going to, let's see, I've got two that I'm kind of deciding between. There's tally up the homework and then compare your tally and decide if chocolate resulted in less homework. This second one sounds like a conclusion because I'm making a decision. So the tallying up of the homework is the just organizing of the data. And then looking at it and seeing if there's any sort of trend or pattern to it, that's going to be drawing conclusions. And communicating your results sounds like sharing your data. All right. So some variables that you want to keep in mind, and these are some good definitions to write down, is you've got your independent variable. All right. So the independent variable, the way I think about this is it is under your control. All right. So if you think about when you become independent, you're in charge of things, all right? So this is the one that you control. You decide how this is going to work. Another way of thinking about it is the independent variable is usually set up at the beginning of the experiment. It's some sort of change that you decided to use in your experiment. So in the homework chocolate test, what was the independent variable? What were the students deciding to change in their experiment? All right. Hopefully you are thinking, oh, that's the chocolate. All right. So the students, who are the experimenters, decided to bring in chocolate or not bring in chocolate, and that's the independent variable. All right. So chocolate was the independent variable. Dependent variable, on the other hand, is the variable that you are going to measure or observe and see if the change that you made in the independent variable causes a change in this dependent variable. All right? So again, this is something that typically in an experiment, you're going to either observe throughout the experiment or observe at the end of the experiment. All right? So in our chocolate homework test, the dependent variable, if you haven't already thought this through is going to be whether or not the students get homework. All right? Dependent variable is also something you don't have control over. All right? And thinking from the point of view of the students who are the experimenters, they don't have control over whether or not their teacher gives them homework. All right? So chocolate was the independent variable. Homework was the dependent variable. And then other variables that may occur in an experiment are things that you want to do your best to control or keep constant and prevent them from messing with your data and inadvertently causing changes that you didn't want to happen. All right? So controls or constants are ways that you make your experiment valid in that you're only testing your independent variable and nothing else is potentially causing changes in your homework. All right? So what are some controls or constants that either based on the description or you could think would be a good idea to use in this homework chocolate test? So it kind of depends on how well you remember the description of it, but if you recall, there was 1 week with chocolate and 1 week without. So using the same number of days for each part is a good control or constant. All right. Another thing that you might want to do is make sure you use the same chocolate on each day. All right. You don't want to sit there and use dark chocolate and then milk chocolate and then white chocolate and realize that, oh, your teacher hates white chocolate, so they give you more homework. Because then that's going to seem like the chocolate resulted in more homework, but it's just because you used white chocolate. All right. Things like that. Stuff that you can make sure are the same so that the only thing that you're testing is just, does bringing in chocolate cause my teacher to give me less homework? All right. You could also, you can even get even more nitty gritty, and this is probably just because I'm a teacher and I think of these things. But maybe making sure you do this the first week of the unit, because maybe you're more likely to just, in general, get homework the first week of the unit because there's a bunch of new introductory information. Something like that. So here is a little bit of practice. So read through this Bikini Bottom story and see if you can identify an independent variable, the dependent variable, and at least 2 controls or constants that are included. So pause the video, read through this, see if you can get the answers yourself, and then start it up and see if you were right. All right, so the premise here is that Mr. Krabs knows that his customers experience gas when eating the Krabby Patties, so he's made a new sauce to see if that will reduce these gas problems. All right, so the thing that Mr. Krabs, he's our experimenter, the thing he has control over, what his independent variable is going to be that sauce. All right, so people are going to either get the new sauce or the old sauce, and he's controlling that. The dependent variable, what he's measuring, what he's hoping that this sauce is going to fix or change, is going to be the gas problems. All right, he's got no control over that. All right, he's just going to see if his sauce makes any difference in it. Any controls or constants that he has, all right, so things that are the same among the 2 groups, that sort of thing. So there's 50 in each group. All right, it's the same Krabby Patties. Let's see, the same amount of time for questioning. Let's see, same color sauce. Try to make it so that people don't know they're in the experimental group. All right, all sorts of things that he's doing here in order to make it so that the only thing he's testing is, do they have the new sauce or the old sauce? All right, so a couple of just more practice. This next one, I know you're going to see something similar to this on your quiz. So which part of the scientific method is based on gathered data? All right, so for this one, think through your different steps. One thing just to kind of help you interpret the question, it's based on gathered data. All right, gathered is past tense, which means the data is already collected. So of these steps, which one would occur after collecting the data? All right, so I'm hoping you can narrow out A and D, because those are both prior to collecting data, for sure. All right, we haven't even gotten to the point of deciding how and what kind of data we're collecting. We're just figuring out what our problem is and, you know, what we might be able to do to fix it. Next one, that to kind of help you decide between B and C, the key here is that the data is already collected. All right, the point of the experiment is to collect the data, but that's exactly what we're doing. We're collecting it. All right, whereas conclusions can only be done after you've gathered the data. All right, so really C is the only one that occurs after data is already collected. So that's why C is the right answer there. All right, so for the next one, you want to test how drinking milk before bed affects sleep when you set up your experiment. All right, so what do you have control over? The milk or the sleep? Hopefully you were saying milk. All right, whether or not you have milk is going to be your independent variable. Your dependent variable, what you're going to measure, is, you know, something like maybe the time to fall asleep. Or how easily you fall asleep, something like that. And then some controls or constants you should force is, you know, maybe make sure you always do this at the same time, same milk, same temperature in your room, make sure you do it in the same bed. All right, lots and lots of things that you want to make sure you keep the same so that the only thing that you're really changing is the presence of the milk.